When you visit Ephesus, you'll stare in amazement at the terrace house mosaics of the wealthy Romans, wonder at what dramas took place at the theater, and what was debated at the library. But amongst all this splendor lies one of the most critical places of this Greco-Roman city, which would be the Forasea, or public toilet. The water from many public toilets in the Roman world was runoff from nearby baths. In the case of the public toilet at Ephesus, the runoff water may have come from the adjacent Scholastica baths, which in turn received their water from aqueducts. Before discussing this public toilet any further, we have to discuss the general toileting habits during the Roman period. Most homes in the ancient world did not have a toilet, rather, most people utilized a chamber pot. The rich, on the other hand, would construct a latrine over a cesspit, oftentimes located directly in the kitchen. Most individuals are not going to be carrying a chamber pot around when they're conducting business at the agora. Furthermore, the rich might not have enough time to return to their homes to defecate. For these practical reasons, it is unsurprising that public toilets began to appear in Roman cities, oftentimes in the heart of the commercial district. What if a city or neighborhood didn't have a public toilet? Well, it appears things were pretty grim. It was bad enough that chamber pots were typically emptied directly into the street and at the mercy of whatever sewage system the city employed, but it was not unusual to simply just defecate in the street if you were out and about. In fact, most ancient cities from this time period had extremely elevated sidewalks, primarily to account for flooding, but also for excrement waste and other garbage. In Pompeii, there's graffiti at the house of Passius Hermes, cursing the individual defecating next to their property. To the one defecating here, beware of the curse. If you look down on this curse, may you have an angry Jupiter for an enemy. Now, public defecation would seem incredibly embarrassing in the modern context, but it is worth noting that unlike pants, if one was wearing a toga, for example, one would be able to squat and defecate with minimal exposure to the public. Furthermore, the public notion of defecation and urination was far less squeamish than nowadays, evidenced by the fact that the public toilet here in Ephesus was communal with no dividers, totaling a staggering 48 seats. The public latrine really does emphasize that the idea of privacy during toileting is a fairly modern construct. This brings us back to the public toilet in Ephesus. One is immediately struck by the keyhole cutouts reminiscent of the modern-day toilet seat. Below the toilet seat would be a channel with running water that would wash the excrement into the sewage system. At the foot of the toilet, one can see a narrow channel which is thought to have included a second running stream of water. The cleaning of one's bottom was done with a simple sponge attached to a stick called a tersorium or xylospongium. As these cleaning appliances were communal in nature, the second running channel of water could be used to clean them after they had been used. Obviously, the reusing of the xylospongium to clean oneself after defecating is highly unsanitary, as the spread of intestinal worms, bacteria such as the one for cholera, or other transmissible diseases with the fecal-oral route would be highly increased. Although the present ruins of the Ephesus toilets are open to the sunlight and obviously clean, in ancient times this would have been an enclosed area with a very strong odor and likely very little lighting by modern standards. Although the absence of light likely provided a sense of privacy, along with the general use of a tunica, which would have covered the genitalia even while sitting, since they tended to end at the knees. It's hard to tell what the general opinion back then was regarding public toilets. Some sources have claimed that such toilets were considered luxuries at that time, clean, sanitary, and a place for conversation. Increasingly, evidence has suggested otherwise. A number of researchers have noted the likelihood of vermin in the sewers crawling up from the openings, the likelihood of urine and feces on the seat and floor, the possibility of small explosions of flame from methane buildup, and of course, the previously mentioned risk of acquiring disease, such as whipworm, roundworm, and histolytica. It's been suggested that the wealthy did not frequent public toilets if they could help it, rather choosing to return home if possible. If there's any indication as to how Romans felt about public toilets, one only need look at a fresco that once adorned a public toilet in Pompeii. Here, the goddess Fortuna looks down on a man squatting to defecate, with serpentine beasts arising from the floor of the toilet. Above him the words, Cecator cave malum, or Defecator beware of evil. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, subscribe, and take a look at my other videos on Ephesus.